Hi everyone, and welcome to CenterFrame Selects, where a notable filmmaker selects their top 5 short films or short scripts. Today I'm joined by Jed Shepherd. He's a writer and producer who's worked with everyone from Blumhouse to Netflix to Shudder, etc., etc. He's a really amazing guy, and I'm so glad he's with us because he's actually produced 2 of CenterFrame's short films. Ethan Evans and Jess Bartlett's Outside Noise, which is one of our earliest funding rounds, as well as Chris Carr's Grandma is Thirsty. Jed, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's always exciting to speak to horror filmmakers because having made a horror myself, I always find there's an interesting angle every horror filmmaker has, something that sort of drives them specifically into the genre. And I'm wondering what yours is. Like, where do you fit into the horror genre?
I think it all kind of started when I was young and I grew up in a Filipino household. And for those of you who know some Filipinos out there, especially the older ones, they really do believe in monsters and ghouls and ghosts, and it's part of everyday culture over there. You really could be walking down the street and someone will come up to you and say they've seen a Tig Balung or Manananggal somewhere, and and people believe it. It's part of the culture. So when your parent tells you that monsters are real, you really believe it growing up. So I would, go to the school library and get out all the monster books. I would, every time I went to Blockbuster Video, I would get the horror films because it wasn't all about entertainment for me. It was about educating myself on these monsters that I could meet in real life. And, the thing that I wanted to do is know how to beat these monsters. Because, if I'm going to meet one, I want to know how to beat one. So, I've just kept that kind of in the back of my mind the whole time, and subconsciously, I'm always on the lookout for like a werewolf, a vampire, and so I know how to deal with myself. And just growing up, not really knowing that filmmaking was a career, because especially in London, you're pushed towards other careers. The creative industry isn't really, the one that kind of people want you to do. So I just didn't even know it was. I just thought films were magic. This came out of thin air. I thought we were speaking about Spielberg earlier. It just feels like magic to me. Like, how can someone create something so amazing out of thin air? Got a bit older, went into a normal kind of office job, and then I started to get itchy and started to see films where they were almost good, but they weren't quite the horror movies I was looking for, the ones that inspired me as a kid and made me want to create stuff. So, I just had in my mind, I want to make movies that I want to see that made me, happy when I was a kid. So, met a group of like-minded people and we started making short films and we did it ourselves with no money because no one would give us any money. Because why would they give us money? We're nobodies. So yeah, we started making short films, and those short films spawned into feature films, and but there wasn't really a clear path.
No, I mean it's interesting. I mean, you in our brief discussion before the show, you mentioned that you're a big fan of classic British horror, and so the British horror angle is the big thing that you want to push for.
Yeah, because we were right at the top, the peak of horror in the 60s and 70s with the Hammer movies and the Amicus movies, making these amazing films that the Americans copied, incredible films. And then we just kind of tailed off because we couldn't compete with Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers, so we just stopped. There's loads of other financial reasons why we couldn't compete with the Americans too. But I feel like it's been so long since we've had a true British movement of horror. I just want to be part of the comeback. I don't need to be spearheading it, but I'd be happy to. But I would love for more filmmakers to kind of rise to the top and create horror and create this brand of horror, this UK brand of horror. And there are people around, like we mentioned Prano earlier, Prano Bailey Bond with Censor, incredible movie. And there's other filmmakers out there like Rose Glass, who's making incredible horror movies. But there needs to be more of us to create this movement. So people from other countries and people from inside the country think, okay, this is a viable option. Horror is really big. American horror is really big here. But maybe we'll give some money to the British filmmakers so we can have homegrown horror hits too. So that's kind of like my dream.
Clearly, we have horror movies we want to make. So, dear investors, can you please just give us like money to make the British horror movies? But speaking of that, actually, when it comes to trying to make films, and clearly, I mean, obviously, you've read these scripts, but you see projects all the time.
Yeah.
What are what are things that get you? Like when, like, how do you like pick the story that connects with you?
I mean, I tend to write everything I'm involved with myself in most cases. But when I'm like a producer on somebody else's project, it just has to be something original from the heart. I need to see the filmmaker reflected in the work. It shouldn't be, a horror script that's just a parody or a pale imitation of a Blumhouse movie or something like that. Because, to be honest, in America, they've got a few hundred years of history to draw on. We've got thousands of years of history to draw on, and we have monsters galore in this country, mythology through the roof. Why don't we use that wealth of information and turn it into a whole cinematic universe? I don't understand it. It's insane. Well, I do understand it. There's a lot of snobbery that goes on in this country. If it's not a costume drama or poverty porn, then people don't want to finance it. Even though there's
Miserable people being miserable,
people being miserable, so you can feel better about yourself, and it'll win awards because people like to see misery. But I'm just like, I want to see films where I'll be happy at the end of it. I want to walk out of a cinema not in tears or my heart broken. I want to walk out of a cinema, celebrating and go, oh my God, that was the best time ever. Like you've been on a roller coaster. And horror movies are really the only way you can do that. I was at the premiere of Send Help the other day, Sam Raimi's new film.
Nice.
And it was so inspiring to me that, someone who's been in the game so long is still making these goofy, funny, incredible movies. And he hasn't lost that kind of childish heart where he could do some gross out stuff as well. And I love it. So, I just want to make movies that, I want to see and a lot of people I know want to see.
Do you have any sort of minutia criteria where you say, I love this kind of stuff, or I'll take this over that, or I want this or this, what are your, like, on a bit more technical level, like what do you like?
If I'm reading somebody else's script, I don't like it following the Blumhouse formula, which is a white family moves into a house with some kids. The kids see some spooky things, the parents don't believe them, and then eventually, stuff starts to happen, and then the parents believe, but it's too late. I've seen it a billion times. I want to see something different. So if it's like a story from a different culture or a spin on a classic trope, for instance, with Host, when we did Host, that is a spin on a classic trope. You've got the very old school British seance film mixed with new technology with Zoom. You put the two together, it creates something fresh. So that's the kind of thing I want to see, something that is still a standard horror trope, but with a new twist. And a lot of the entries into this competition had that, and I was very impressed.
Yeah, actually, let's get to the scripts here, because we gave you 20, from all the people that submitted, and this has actually been our record submission. We had the most submissions out of any of the Selects filmmakers so far, which was really awesome. But we gave you 20. What was it like going through those? Because I know you read shorts a lot. So,
I do, yeah.
Tell me more. What was it like?
Well, I was very impressed by all of the entries. They seemed very, 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 a lot of these people have never made a short film, like filmed a short film before. So a lot of these were very speculative. And you can kind of tell a difference between the ones that have directed things before, because they were writing for them to shoot. And then other people wrote just as a kind of way of almost like catharsis or just to put it onto the page. So it was very interesting seeing those dynamics. But I'm very interested in the fact that these were all genre entries, and that wasn't one of the specifications of the competition, was it?
No, but I mean, I think you are known for a certain thing.
Yeah, so
they're like, oh, cool.
Yeah, so I thought that was quite amusing. So I'm always on the lookout, especially when someone knows I'm involved, if they try to do something that they think that I would like, and in most cases, I won't like that. If it's too on the nose, I feel
that's a lot of filmmakers feel that way.
Yes.
They don't. First, I think a lot of artists in general don't like being typecast. But then also we want to be surprised.
Exactly.
And you don't surprise me with something I already know.
Exactly.
But that's not how the industry works.
Yes.
The industry is, well, we artists, we want the same. We want to be surprised.
Yes.
And the industry said, no, we want what you've done before.
Exactly. They're reactive, not proactive, which is why every other Blumhouse film is exactly the same, because one made 500 million, so we'll just make the same thing again. But the entries were brilliant, they're really good. And I mean, I'm sure there were loads more than 20 that were submitted, but the 20 you sent me was so good. There were a few that were a standout to me, though, for sure, just in terms of just the quality level. And you can tell they've, this wasn't the first draft. This was like, maybe 10 drafts in, and, very good. And, I always compare myself to my scripts to other people's scripts. And, some of those were up there with, definitely with what I can do. Maybe some of them are better than I can do. It was a very high ceiling for these shorts.
So before we get started on your top 5, why don't we do a quick highlight reel of the top 10 scripts that he selected? All right, so those were your top 10. Let's start with the first one of your top 5. And we're doing this in alphabetical order, by the way, because these are not like which one's the winner. This is, we're celebrating fantastic filmmaking, fantastic writing on this show. That's the whole point of this. So let's start with the first one. And in alphabetical order, the first one is A Bell Tower by Jason Sheedy.
Yeah, when I first read Bell Tower, I was like, who is this Jason Sheedy? Because it's so mature, the writing. It actually reminded me, and this may be going overboard too much, it reminded me of a Tarkovsky movie.
Ooh.
It really did. It was like, this is very...
That's interesting. That's an interesting take. I like that.
It felt very, a lived-in medieval type world. And, there's Robert Eggers in there as well. It felt like this person either had done a lot of research on, medieval stuff, or just really inspired by Tarkovsky. There was a lot of Shirley Jackson in there too, with the lottery. There were some similarities there. But I just felt like it's so hard in short form to world build. But Jason managed to world build and got me really interested and locked into this story. I didn't know where it was going. And I feel like this is the kind of filmmaker that we need to give money to make stuff, because I think there are a lot of people out there trying to do folk horror because they watch The Witch and they think, okay, this is popular, this will do well, but no one can really pull it off, because especially in the UK, folk horror was our thing. Like, as I said, with the Hammer and Amicus films, like Witchfinder General, one of my favorite films of all time, we don't get those movies anymore, with such rich history and so many layers. But I think Jason Sheedy with Bell Tower managed to do it, and he's created this incredible world that I want to live in. Well, at least for 5 minutes, because it seems quite dangerous. But I was really, really impressed with this.
How would you describe the premise of the film?
So it is about a ominous bell tower, and it is about and again, I don't want to give too many spoilers because I'm sure people will read it. But it's about someone who's chosen, a little bit like Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, which is why there's that allusion to it.
This is a good reference, though, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, Shirley Jackson is, she's one of the best horror writers of all time. And he has created something similar to that, where it's a medieval process where someone gets chosen as a sacrifice, maybe, or as a warning, and just
don't spoil it.
Just the world that they built is incredible, and I'm very impressed. I'd really like to know if Jason had research this time,
Mm-hmm.
or is he just going off like other kind of movies around the same time? But this felt extremely mature and well researched, and yeah, I'd love to. I don't know anything about Jason, but I'd love to know what he's done before, what he's got lined up, because he's ready to go. I think he's a ready to go filmmaker.
Nice,
I think,
nice.
yeah.
I'm sure he'll be very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to the next one?
Sure.
Okay, next one on your list is That You, Maddie by Anna Morris.
It felt to me very much like, and this is no slight at all, very much like an episode of Black Mirror.
Right.
Very much so.
It's a great compliment. It's a fantastic
Yes.
show.
Oh, of course. But there are a lot of people out there who try to do like a Black Mirror type thing because, again, it's extremely popular. And we live in a world where technology is, soaring. AI is everywhere. And she's managed to create an original story that I was locked into. And it's basically about a woman who at first we believe is grieving over the loss of her partner Matty, and she creates almost, again, I don't want to spoil it, a double of him, and creates a relationship with this double, and then something happens to twist that world around. And again, really well written, really well conceived. This will do really well in festivals if it ever gets made, and I hope it does. And in fact, all of these filmmakers, I'd love to keep in touch with them. Just if I can help in any way to get these made, I'd love to, because they're all incredible.
I'd happily put you in touch.
Yeah,
no question at all. And I'm sure they all submitted hoping that you'd say that. Gary's like, I think we all at some point have submitted to a festival because we thought, oh my God, look, there's this person on the panel. If they just love it so much, maybe they'll get in touch with you. Well, if you actually do that, then we'll have over-delivered.
These five for sure, yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. That's great to hear. That's great to hear. And I'm sure Anna's happy to hear that as well. Let's do the next one.
Sure.
Next one on your top 5 is Mr. Mittens by Stephen Graves.
Graves.
Stephen Graves. Yeah.
I've met Stephen before, I think a couple of times, and I've been in short film festivals with him. And so I've seen a bunch of his work before, and it's always quality stuff. Very good writer director. So when I saw his name, I was like, I'm probably going to like this anyway, because I like everything he's done. But he still surprised me, even though I know his previous work. He surprised me. The thing that I love about this the most is a lot of it is from the point of view of a cat. And it felt very found footage. So obviously, this is one of the ones where I thought, oh, is this submitted because I'm involved? Because it feels very found footage. But I loved it. And I think I would watch a whole movie from this cat's perspective. Recently, we had Good Boy, which was a film mostly from a dog's perspective. And this felt very similar. And, again, there's twists and turns, and you see everything from the cat's point of view. And I think filming this would be very difficult, but I mean, you could just tie a camera to a cat, but I don't think it will. Usually they don't do what
herding cats is a problem.
Exactly. But again, he made me love this little world that he's built, and he is a director that I know if he managed to film this, he will pull it off 100%. I was trying to think, I don't think I would be able to pull this off. It's just logistically very difficult. But I think Stephen can. I've seen what he can do before, so he's one of the ones where I know he can pull this off, and I'd love to see it. Again, this would be a festival favorite because everyone loves cats, and so yeah. No, I love this.
It'd be a social media favorite too.
I think so.
Everybody loves cats.
I really think so.
I always love it when there's a completely crazy ambition in the script where you just know it's like, oh my God, how are they gonna do this?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But then you realize this filmmaker often wrote this because they have access to something, or they've done something where they go, oh, I can totally, I can just shoot this over there, because where I live, we have this thing all the time. Whereas we would, of course, not being from there, go, man, we have to build, or we have to do this, do that, and so I always love it when there's something like this.
Yeah, I'm sure he wrote this with the intention to use what's around him. The house in it is probably his house,
probably,
because I know he's a director as well. I know he probably wrote this with those things in mind. But yeah, it was just like I mentioned before, I want to see things and I want to read things that are fun. And some of the other ones were quite serious, where and maybe they were slightly written better, but this is one of the fun ones where I was just like, this is great. Like, we need more like this. So yeah, Stephen, get it made. I'd love to see it.
All right, let's move on to your fourth pick, Panic Attack by J.D. Duffield.
I know we're not meant to say what our favorite one was, but I think this was my favorite one.
Right, okay.
This just felt, again, very mature and just extremely well written. And I'd seen some of the stuff that JD had done before in the action world. She'd made action shorts. And so I'd seen them. So I knew she could do action, but I didn't know she could do like the horror side of things too. So this is, honestly, this is like textbook perfect short film.
Nice.
And one of the things that really reminded me, just to give you a little bit of what it's about, it's essentially the manifestation of anxiety as a real life thing that the protagonist can fight in the physical world. And it really reminded me of the French film Martyrs. Not the remake, which was terrible, but the film Martyrs, where like grief and trauma is manifested into the real world as this creature that attacks the lead. And this felt like similar in the best possible way. And because I know that JD could pull off action, I was just excited to see this. And on the page, it's really hard to write action on the page. I find it really hard myself. But the way she's formatted it just felt very kinetic and alive. And I just loved it. So the first half is like a horror, dread building, and the second half is action, and I absolutely loved it. And this one has to be made. I'm gonna try and help this one get made if I can, because this has got everything to do well, not just at festivals, but I think it has a life beyond that, maybe, and maybe even as a feature.
I mean, even if you didn't have it as a premise for a feature, but you had it as a scene in a feature, it would be amazing.
Yes.
I think I completely agree with that. Like, if put it this way, when I read it, I was like, so this is Good Will Hunting as an action movie condensed into one single scene. Like, if you took that and just ramped it up to 11, and then took out all these sort of crazy character stuff from Good Will Hunting, but just made it about his inner trauma, and then he had to fight it. Then you've got this movie.
Exactly, and I love it. And I think you're right. It can just be one part of a sequence in the film, but I think because I've seen the stuff that JD's done before, I know she can pull this off. Because sometimes you read something and you just think, okay, they'll never be able to do this, but she could definitely pull this off. And it wouldn't even cost that much. It's still very contained, even though the ideas are massive. The world is quite contained. So yeah, I would just love to see this get made. I was very excited while I was reading this. I was like, this person knows exactly what they're doing. Yeah, and honestly, it's one of the I've read a lot of shorts recently. One of the best shorts I've read in a while.
That's great to hear.
Yeah,
really awesome. And now your final selection of the top 5 is Vag by Lily Britton.
Vag by Lily Britton. Even the title just it raised a smile as soon as I read it. And you know what? Recently, I love it that a lot of women are getting into horror, and there needs to be more women getting into horror, and this is why. Like, this kind of short film is why. And I love that it's about something very close to everyone's heart, like the dating scene in London, and the pitfalls and the crazy people you might meet. And again, I don't want to spoil anything, but I think Lily has an incredible way of writing characters and setting the scene. Like this, I would say this might be the best written one out of all of them, just in terms of, you could tell, again, I don't know what Lily's done before, but this is a very accomplished writer, and just the way everything's structured, and the build up to, and the characters, funny, and just very engaging.
I'm always envious when I read great characters, because I try to write, and I don't call myself a writer. I write, but I don't call myself a writer.
Yeah.
And so when I see really well crafted dialogue with really great personality, and
Yeah.
it's just rich. You could just, it's just what they, when they say it leaps off the page, that's exactly what that means.
Yeah,
You know exactly who this person is with a couple sentences.
exactly.
And I envy that every time I read it.
Honestly, like me too, and like again, I don't know much about Lily besides I know like she's a writer. This would work really well as a, maybe even a feature, because the way she describes characters and just the crazy situations that these characters go through, it's just very, very. I'd love to speak to her about this. I'd love to know if this was inspired by real life experiences
Probably was
in London, especially.
Honestly, it probably was. You know, having been part of the London dating scene,
East London specifically.
Well,
like,
it is true. You do meet some very, very interesting characters.
yeah. In fact, this is Vaj is set not too far away from me. It's set in Dalston. So it's
that's where I live.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Wow.
which is
this
why
based on you?
It felt. I hope not. Oh my God, have we? No, I don't think so. that would be scary. That would be a real
scary.
horror film. If this was submitted to the show, it's like, Bernard, this is about you. that would be scary as hell. No, but like it is. But dating in London is very, very much a minefield.
It's the biggest horror of them all. Yeah,
and so yeah, I completely respect what Lily was portraying here. I think it's
exactly
awesome.
And it's like I mentioned before, like if you manage to eke horror out of everyday occurrences and stuff that people know, that's where the magic's created. If you can make horror out of something that's an experience that people go through every day, then it's magic. And
that's my favorite kind of horror.
Exactly.
I've as much as I like the supernatural, for me it's the really grounded stuff that always like gets me. You know, like that's when I have the real freak out. Is when it's just like, oh crap, this could happen to me right now. And even if it's embellished. I think that's one of the things that I really liked about films like Get Out and stuff like that. Is that this is the everyday horror, but just amplified.
Exactly. And like honestly, just because the writing's so good, like I'm sure she's written features and stuff. I'd love to read some other stuff, Lily, because on the page, like beautiful prose. So it was a tough act to beat.
I think what's really exciting about this list was, for me, is that obviously having done this a few times, you start seeing sort of a few names pop up that you've come across and blah blah. This was a brand new list for me.
Really?
So like,
nice.
I've not come across in the top 5 any of these writers in any of the other competitions I've done or anything like that. So it was exciting. It was cool to hear that you'd come across some of these names through the horror circuit. But through having done this, most of the names I've not come across. There have been a few people that have submitted again, obviously, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember this. I've read this script from that person or blah blah. But it's exciting that these are new names, and if obviously there are 5 writers now that were part of your top 10 that didn't make it to the top 5. Can you give us just like a broad sort of advice or a commentary about like what they could, if there's a difference between the quality or anything like that?
Sure. The other 5 from my top 10, I mean, they were all really, really, really good. Like, it was very hard to pick them, and like honestly, any of them could have really made it into the top 5. One of them I thought was really interesting. I'm not going to say which one, but one of the ones that didn't make the top 5 was only 3 pages long, and I think if that was a little bit longer, and it probably would have crept into the top 5, just because I was very engaged, and then it ended before it really got its hooks in me. But I feel like I've written shorts and made short films that are 2 minutes long, and it's really, really the most difficult thing is to get all that information into like such a short space of time. And if you manage to do it, amazing. But if you don't, then you maybe need to explain it a little bit more, maybe write a little bit more, so we're engaged with these characters. But it was a tough act, and there were a couple of real standouts in the top 5. So it was very, very hard to beat.
It's always hard when you have to narrow it down,
Yes.
And look, even picking the 20 wasn't easy, because you always, I run the industry showcase, right? With short films, and picking 5 films from, I mean, we're going through it right now,
Yeah.
picking 5 films that can fit into an hour, and we try to pick between 3 and 5 because obviously the length varies sometimes, but it's just, there's so many good ones.
So many,
And then
yeah.
you go, well, considering what we're trying to do, what would benefit? So sometimes really good films don't get in because the filmmakers are already really established, and
Yeah.
we're like, You don't need my help.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
fine."
yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a good,
Yeah.
and so we then have to take somebody more established and put them aside. But then there are others where you go, man, between this and that one, this one just had this little problem,
Yeah.
and it's like the tiniest thing.
Yeah.
And then you have to dismiss a really, really good film because of the tiniest thing, because,
Exactly. And it's also like one of the things that maybe discounts someone from reaching the very top is if you are, again, just doing a riff on something else that's already happened, something popular. If look, my tip, and the kind of films and short films that I want to see is stuff based on the UK and the mythology and the cryptids that we have out there. And like I said, there's thousands of years of history to draw upon. Like we have so much, cool stuff out there you can write about. It doesn't just have to be about vampires and werewolves and poltergeists and haunted houses. There's a billion different creatures out there you could do stories about. And one of my favorite things is this series of films, kind of TV films called Ghost Story for Christmas.
Oh.
The M.R. James kind of things. And like, they're all so good. They all draw upon English mythology and stories from ancient times, but very, very British with it. And you just don't see that anymore. I'd love to see filmmakers not draw upon what the Americans are doing, try to create our own thing over here.
I agree. Yeah. One of my favorite films that came out as probably almost a decade ago now, was Troll.
Oh, yeah.
I love Troll.
Yeah.
And it's so uniquely, was it Norwegian?
Norwegian,
Yeah.
Troll Hunter.
Yeah, Troll Hunter. That's what it's
Yes.
called, Troll Hunter.
Yeah.
It was so
So
good.
good, yeah.
It was so good. It was so uniquely from there, but it was still fun, still exciting. Had a lot of jokes,
Oh my God,
but
yeah.
it was still creepy, and it was fantastic,
Really impressive,
and that kind of originality is, I think, key to the whole thing. And it's not like they spent a ton of money on the movie.
No, not at all, no.
And it's just, I think that's what it is. I mean, this was during the found footage wave,
Yeah.
there was so many found footage movies,
Yeah.
But still, just interesting angles on existing ideas.
Exactly. I think, Ben Wheatley does it really well because
Ben Wheatley's a great job.
he mixes these massive Hollywood studio movies with these like tiny little, folk horror movies, like based on like English legends and stuff, like A Field in England, and that one was called Under the Earth, Under the Ground, or that one he did recently. Like his career is great. He's one of the few people British people who I can look at it and think, this guy's doing it right. He isn't just, selling a soul to Hollywood. He is actually making these films about England and the weird stuff we have here too. So that's what I personally want to see more of. And I think eventually, if we keep knocking on those doors, that people will have to answer at some point, because horror is #1 at the box office. Send Help's #1 at the box office. We need to keep making horror, and we need to make British horror.
Agreed. Let me just, before we close this out, take one last question from you.
Sure.
No, I have a last question to you. Short films. We're trying now really hard to make short films more of a thing, and I'd love to hear from you what you think the future of short films is, if there's any kind of real future for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the future of short films is bright, and I think it's extremely necessary. And it's so funny when I see people dismissing short films, especially filmmakers. They say, oh, there's no point making a short film, it's a waste of money. Absolutely not. Every single person I know who's made a feature started off in short films, did the festival circuit with their short films, and that's how they got noticed. We spoke about Prano earlier. She did 10 years of short films before she made Censor, and that honed her skills to the nth degree and made an incredible movie. Me and Rob Savage, we made short films for 10 years too, alongside Prano. And, that honed our skills on how to do horror. And then we made Host. And absolutely everybody I know did that. So, people like Edgar Wright, he started off in short films. It really is the only way right now to kind of get short films made. One of the CenterFrame shorts from 2 years ago with Ethan Evans and Jess, they started with short films, and now I can't say too much, but they're about to make features, and it's based on the fact that if you can prove yourself with short films, it's just less of a risk for the money people, for producers and studios, because they can say, oh, you can do this with very little money. You can produce something that looks great. So, what if we give you a little bit more money? So I think do whatever you can to make short films. Don't try to jump to, I know it's very tempting to jump to features, but you could waste a lot of money doing that. Make a short film first. Build your team around you, and you meet them on short film sets.
And hone your skills.
Exactly. Hone your skills and know your flaws and where you can fill in the gaps. And, the very first short film, like me and Rob Savage made, which was called Absence, we have used that same team on all the features we've done as well, like still good friends. And, that's how you do it. And the entire cast of Host, they were in our short films before Host. So, you meet the best kind of people along the way, and then when you're ready, you can finally make your feature film.
It's just I think there's this desperate hope by filmmakers out there that if they just made the one short film, maybe they can somehow leap forward and just immediately get to the feet. It's like, no, you have to build up your credentials, your credibility. This is a circuit, and you grow, and you have to grow with the people that know you and with the time and with your experience. Every now and then somebody can leapfrog something, but most of the time it's just hard graft, getting through it, meeting the people, going to festivals, bumping into even on our site, just messaging the filmmakers you like, and you just have to get through it, and it'll take time. And the hard part is sustaining that.
Exactly.
That's the hard part. It is so difficult, that and we're trying to close that gap. Like we're trying to create all these initiatives to make that period just a little bit shorter and a little bit more, maybe not predictable, but a bit more sustainable, but it's just, you just have to keep going and stick with it.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't easy for me and Rob. We were making these short films and they were doing well in festivals, but we didn't, no one told us how to do that next step. We really had to discover it ourselves, going through festivals, speaking to other people at festivals, other filmmakers, like, how did you make the jump? And then you meet producers, you meet, people in studios, you just meet friends who you work with later. And eventually it just becomes so natural that you just slip into a feature. And Host was only made because Shudder had seen our short films before. Otherwise, they wouldn't have given us the money to make it. So I really do think having a good short film is the best kind of calling card. Again, I'm going to use Jess and Ethan and the film we made with CenterFrame called Outside Noise. They had made short films for years before, but they'd never really made one that they could call their calling card because, it costs a little bit of money. So CenterFrame helped out with that, and Jess and Ethan won the competition. And they had the money to make a really good short film, and we made a really good short film. And finally, they had something they could show, which actually, highlights Ethan's skills as a director, Jess's skills as a producer and writer, and it's a real easy thing to show a studio. Then, if you've got something like Outside Noise, be like, look, we can do this on a small budget. We can make it look like a Hollywood movie. And
that's the thing, is like short films now are produced at such a high standard. There's no reason why short films should be relegated to being just calling cards for the industry.
Exactly.
They are entertainment, and they're impeccable entertainment. So I think it's really important to start framing short films as more than just this kind of business tool.
You know what? One of the things I did, we had a short film called Salt, 2 minutes long. We didn't really know how to get it out there. We could put it on the internet, we could put it in places, but we were like, no one's going to watch it. So what we did is I called up the Prince Charles Cinema, and I said, and this was around like September, October, going into their horror kind of season. And I said, are there any films where you can put our short film in front of? So we, for a whole week, we had salt before all the horror films at the Prince Charles Cinema because it was 2 minutes long. And, they're really nice there. And, they screened our shorts in various festivals before. So they were like, yeah, okay, so it's only short, instead of a couple of adverts. And so we got so much attention from that. Just people like tweeting and writing it online. Wow, just saw this short before watching this Conjuring 2 or whatever it was. And and just thought that was a little bit of proactivity that meant more people would see it organically and got us more attention. It just meant when we had the meetings with studios, we had all this feedback from social media that people loved it.
I'm desperately trying to get shorts before features as a standard thing that cinemas do, and that basically generates audience feedback and statistics for producers and distributors. Because cinema audiences and social media and YouTube audiences are not the same people, so knowing exactly how well people respond to films in cinemas is a great way to know, hey, maybe we should pursue this idea, instead of putting all the money out the gate into a big movie that you don't know will or will not perform. Have a proof of concept, something short, 5 minutes max, going before another film, And I think major studios should embrace that for the big franchises too. Can you imagine if the Deadpool short film had come out before an X-Men movie instead of it being leaked online? People would have lost their minds. You know what I mean? If that were the case, So this is what I mean, is that I feel like short films are they're a national resource and they're not being utilized.
It's incredible how it's not being utilized. Like all it takes is one chain, like I don't know, Odeon or whoever, just to be like, we're going to support up and coming filmmakers. We're going to put something back into the industry, and one advert comes out, and then you put one short film in, and that will really, really help that filmmaker and really help the industry as well. And maybe it could be a competition, like, because I remember, here's something that we used to do. Do you know when the Blair Witch Project was released in the UK on the VHS? Like, it had on the VHS after the Blair Witch Project a 3-minute short film. It was a competition winner.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was it was about like a haunted chair or something. But it won a competition through British Telecom to be on that VHS, and so you just imagine how popular Blair Witch Project is, and to have this random killer chair short film on the VHS, how many people would have seen that? Just thousands. Amazing. And we used to really support short filmmakers and up-and-coming filmmakers. And I remember when I was little going to the cinema, there was always short films beforehand. So I guess now these cinemas, they need to make money, so adverts have to go in. But I think a lot of the independent ones could potentially, maybe show short films and have those filmmakers come in, and if they prove that they, support those filmmakers.
I guarantee you, if you as an indie cinema put on a short film before it, the filmmaker will show up 100%. And even give you a Q&A if you want it. You know what I mean? Like, absolutely, that they will 100% be there. It is, I feel like, as a millions get spent every year on shorts, and it's a resource that's not being utilized. And again, they're being produced at levels that rival major TV shows and big and indie movies, So I definitely want to make sure that happens. I'm going to talk to you some more about that. I think let's see if we can get something going, especially for horror shorts. Well, thank you for picking your top 5, and thank you for doing that. I'm sure all the 5 filmmakers that have just found out they've been selected by you are super ecstatic. I will make sure to put you guys in touch as well, to make sure of that. But also, the filmmakers will actually get a pro membership, a 3-month pro membership. And with that, they can come to the industry showcase, which I'm going to invite you to as well.
Where's my pro membership?
You got money. No, these filmmakers don't have anything.
Okay,
but they get to come to the industry showcase, and they'll come to our industry events that we try to do to help them connect with more people. So thanks again for doing this. Much appreciated. Great for the conversation, and let's do another one. I think. Yes, let's hook it up again. I think everybody liked it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.